For a man who could not speak English, when he landed in the US in the 1930s to escape the German persecution back home in Austria, Billy Wilder took to Hollywood like a fish to water. Impressed by Billy's craft in the 1944 noir film Double Indemnity, Satyajit Ray sent him a 12-page letter. Though Ray never got a reply, Billy had done what only one auteur could do for another, making Ray fall in love with American cinema for what they entertained and later for what they taught, leading Ray to consider cinema as a distinct form of art. Billy Wilder was a key figure in the struggle waged by Hollywood auteurs in gaining freedom from the censorship committee, which constrained the free flow of artistic expression by imposing various restrictions. This purportedly self-imposed censorship was called the Hays Code, named after the President of Motion Picture Producers and Distributors of America, William H. Hays. The code was in existence in Hollywood between 1934 and 1968 and laid down the do's and don'ts in filmmaking. It was essentially a moral code that governed the on-screen depiction of alcohol, violence, and lust, among other things. More on that later. Now let me tell you a story of a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who left the profession as his heart was not into it. William Burke Miller was a low-paid newspaper cub reporter sent to cover the story of a man named Floyd Collins, who was trapped in a cave after its roof collapsed and a heavy rock pinned him down. Even as the rescuers were making a frantic effort to reach Collins, Miller used his diminutive figure to wriggle into the cave, talk to Collins, bring him food, and even pray with him. Miller reported the incident with a personal touch in the first-person narrative. His write-ups were lapped up by the American readers, and soon enough, entire US was eagerly awaiting news on Collins, as reported by Miller. Over the course of a fortnight, Miller became a national sensation and Collins a hero. However, the entire episode ended in tragedy when after 15 days of hard work, the rescuers could reach only Collins' dead body. Miller rode the wave of his newfound popularity to bag the Pulitzer Prize a year later in 1926. Miller soon left reporting and became an ice cream retailer. So much for journalism. It is Collins and Miller's story that inspired Billy Wilder's 1951 cinema named Ace in the Hole. We see Kirk Douglas playing an unscrupulous but an ambitious journalist. Douglas's character, named Chuck Tatum, lands at a newspaper office with a peculiar proposal for the editor. His extravagant offer is accepted and he finds himself a job, which he sees as a ticket back home to big town among the big boys. As a year goes by, Tatum has not laid his hands on any major story that would bring him name or fortune. It is in this despondency that he is sent on an assignment with a rookie photographer to cover a rattlesnake hunt. At a fuel outlet, Tatum accidentally learns about a cave collapse, leading to an artifact hunter named Leo Minosa getting trapped. Tatum realizes that his big break has arrived and sets about manipulating the entire rescue operation such that he gets to cover this event exclusively. Billy draws a rather scathing picture of the journalistic ethics with Tatum. Tatum becomes the representative image of the malaise that has afflicted the entire industry, baiting readers with a tragic story, giving importance to ambience than helping out the victims, treating a mishap as a personal fiefdom, then letting others in to amplify the impact of a wider coverage. Tatum manipulates, Reed bribes the town sheriff to deputize him in the rescue efforts and misuses his powers to prevent others from getting access to the site or the relatives of Minosa. Having already established contact with Minosa in the cave, Tatum projects himself as the former's friend and assumes control over the entire rescue operation. The contractor, who assures that Minosa can be rescued in a day, is arm-twisted into adopting another method to prolong the entire operation such that he can milk the last drop of tear from this episode. And there is this complicated character of Minosa's wife, Lorraine, played with dexterity by John Sterling. Lorraine at first wants to escape from the godforsaken land with Minosa's money, but Tatum stops her. Tatum takes control of Lorraine and makes her the heartbroken wife in his write-ups that are already creating a stir, with a bevy of national newspapers wanting their share of the spoils. Enamored by Tatum's magnetic personality, Lorraine enters into an affair with him and starts dreaming of a life in a big city with Tatum by her side. Lorraine does not want to live in a place where the only witness to her charms is an unforgiving desert. But when curious readers start thronging the place and Minosa's ramshackle joint starts raking in the moolah, she stays put to collect the windfall. As days pass, more and more people start coming to the place, giving it an atmosphere of a big carnival. The entrepreneur in Lorraine wakes up to this opportunity and she starts charging entry fee from curious visitors. Meanwhile, Tatum resigns from the local paper and strikes a deal with a New York major, getting paid $1,000 a day for his exclusive coverage. On the fifth day, a doctor accompanying Tatum diagnoses Minosa with pneumonia. Now starts the amazing transformation of Tatum from being an unscrupulous and manipulative journalist into a remorseful human being. Tatum now wants to hasten the rescue operation, but is told by the contractor that it is impossible as his instructions to prolong the operation have pushed the alternative way out of the picture. Realizing that Minosa is running out of time, Tatum feels the guilt sinking in. He finds out that Minosa is head over heels for Lorraine and has even arranged a special anniversary gift for her. Minosa realizes that his time is up and requests Tatum to bring a priest. Torn by remorse that he is responsible for Minosa's plight, Tatum tries to strangulate Lorraine with a fur shawl that Minosa wanted to gift her. Lorraine stabs him with a pair of scissors and self-defense. A mortally wounded Tatum drives to a church to bring a priest to Minosa, who shortly dies in the cave. Drunk and injured, Tatum goofs up his gift for the New York major and loses out on the exclusive story that was his ticket back among the big players. Finally, Tatum races against time to reach his previous employer's place with another extravagant offer and collapses in the office. Billy's Ace in the Hole made its debut on the silver screen in 1951, but his portrayal of how media circus functions is relevant to our times. Sensationalism and disregard for a victim's privacy has come to define the very existence of media today. However, can we say with conviction that we crave only for hard news to keep ourselves informed? Do not we all like a human interest story where the underdog beats all adversities against heavy odds? A little tearjerker for good old humanity's sake. A scene in the cinema shows people jumping out of trains, buses and cars to reach the site of the rescue operation. Is true of our times as well. Only difference being technology delivering the developments in excruciating details right to our doorsteps. Ace in the Hole dissects those reporting the news and those consuming it and presents a rather ominous, albeit true, picture of the both. Those bemoaning a rather sad and untimely demise of journalistic ethics only need to watch this movie to understand that the virtues they are extolling did not exist even a century ago. We all like to think that we belong to an enlightened generation, capable of doing better than our forebears, but seldom realizing that we keep committing the same mistakes, albeit a bit differently. Our search for utopia always comes at the expense of reality. While the cinema qualifies to be called as a tragedy, apart from Tatum, all others, including the corrupt, get what they want. The depiction was as close to reality as possible, for the transformation of the protagonist eventually proves to be his undoing. There is no moral lesson to be had out of Ace in the Hole, for it is as clinical and as unemotional as Jack London's To Build a Fire. Ace in the Hole is verily a cinematic marvel, a study in realism. Now, Billy did not have a smooth run with his Ace in the Hole. Prior to making the cinema, his longtime associate Charles Brackett parted ways with him. Shortly after the release, the script became subject of a courtroom battle over plagiarism, which Billy eventually lost. The set of Ace in the Hole was the biggest created for a non-war cinema at the time, and it was also Billy's foray into cinema as writer, producer and director all combined into one. He also ran into trouble with the Hays Code for depicting an alcoholic hero, a licentious woman entering an adulterous relationship and a corrupt policeman having his way. Despite all the pains he undertook, Billy's Ace in the Hole was a commercial disaster. There were not enough people willing to spare their money or time to watch Billy's directorial masterpiece, combined with compelling acting by Kirk Douglas. The film failed at the box office, and Kirk Douglas's one of the greatest exhibitions of on-screen acting was nearly forgotten.